live. So, Hey everybody, welcome back to another Sunday night. It is 7 p.m. Eastern time. If you're on the East Coast, if you're on the West Coast, it's about 4 p.m. And if you're Central, I believe it's about 6 p.m. So I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight if you are, and I just wanted to make sure we were live on my end. And as you guys can see, we have our wonderful guest joining us again, Tanya from Guided Insurance. She's back again, so this is an opportunity to learn more about home insurance. And at the end, we'll jump in a little bit into commercial insurance. But if you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, hit the like buttons as well, so we can get pushed more through the algorithm. And if you know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that needs this information, pass it on to them and give it a share and send it their way, because this is much needed information, especially during any real estate transaction. So I'll have Tanya introduce herself and then we'll jump into it.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Happy Sunday. Hope you've had a good day. Thank you for inviting me back, Devon. I'm very happy to be here tonight and continue the discussion about home insurance and then get into a little bit about commercial insurance at the end. So I'm Tanya Isles Anderson, owner of Guided Insurance. We are located in Atlanta, Georgia, and licensed to serve customers throughout the entire state of Georgia, handling most policies over the phone or virtually. So definitely, if you have insurance needs in Georgia, reach out, and we'll see if we can save you some money on your current coverages. Devon will be sharing my contact information at the end. So again, happy to be here tonight, and let's talk about homeowners insurance and commercial insurance.
Yes, no problem. James, my dad, said, hello, can't wait for the info. David said, good evening, Clark and Tanya. Good evening, you guys. And don't be scared, you guys. Put the question, any questions you might have. Of course, Tanya is based out of Georgia. However, ask questions, because you never know. You might be able to get, if it's a general question, she might be able to answer it. But of course, you still want to make sure you talk to someone that provides it in your area as well. Hello, Angela. How you doing? All right. So I'll start it off. I had sent Tanya some questions. So just in case everybody decided not to jump on tonight and ask questions. but I wanted to make sure, that we had some questions that we could kind of get into. So the first question, let me make sure I have them here, that I sent Tanya over, is what types of events does home insurance typically cover? So what type of events does it typically cover in regards to your home?
Okay. Yeah, that's a commonly asked question, and it's, something that your insurance agent should definitely take the time to explain to you when you're getting your insurance policy. It's also probably worth looking at your insurance policy, ahead of storms, just so you're clear on what is covered, so that you can save yourself a lot of frustration if you do damage. You just kind of know up front what kinds of things are covered per your policy. So again, before I answer these questions, I just want to put out that disclaimer that insurance agents should always say, and that, everything is, we speak in general terms. Everything is policy specific. There are a lot of state specific things, things that might apply in Georgia that maybe don't apply in South Carolina or don't apply in California. So, I definitely ask you to definitely keep that in mind as I'm speaking tonight, and, encourage you in your state to definitely have a conversation with your agent to make sure you're clear on what the guidelines are for your state. So typically in Georgia, the typical homeowner's policy is going to give dwelling coverage. So that covers the structure of the home itself. Okay. It's going to protect it against from fire damage, storm damage, theft damage. All right. Floods and earthquakes, you can get those covered, but it typically will require a separate policy for that. And you don't have to live in a floodplain to get flood insurance. We're seeing more and more examples of global warming, whether some people believe that's a term or not, but global warming, and it is causing things to happen more frequently than they have in the past, and more destructive than they have in the past. Definitely, if you don't have flood insurance, have a conversation with your insurance agent just to see, what that financial impact would be, and get some input on whether your home is possibly one that should add some flood insurance to it. And then the homeowner's policy is also going to cover your personal property. So that's like the things inside. In insurance, we typically will call this contents. So it would be if you pick that residence up and flipped it upside down, anything that falls out of it, those would be considered your personal property items. And those are typically covered in your homeowner's policy. Now, there are limits for this section of your coverage. So if you have very expensive jewelry, very expensive art collection, coins, things like that, you'll want to make sure you disclose that to your agent so that they can make sure the coverages you have under your standard homeowner's policy covers that. And if not, that they offer the additional coverage that you need to make sure those things are covered. Again, you just want to avoid surprises. You don't want to learn that you weren't properly covered after your items get destroyed or stolen. So definitely take some time to review what you have and make sure that it's still adequate for your current situation. Another item that's typically covered in a standard homeowner's policy would be personal liability. So that is when you have a guest at your home and something happens to them or something happens to their property. This coverage is what you pay for to be ready to cover the expenses associated with that. You can also use this for any legal defense if the person ends up feeling like they have to sue you to get you to cover the damages and injuries they experienced at your home. Medical payments, on the other hand, again, are there to just, let's just get this over with. Somebody got hurt. I don't know if it was my fault or not. I don't know if it was your fault or not. It happened at my house, though. Let's just settle it. So you can dip into that medical payments part of your coverage for that. This includes pets. So if your dog, your cat, whatever other kind of pet you have hurt someone, you could use medical payments to cover those injuries. Finally, a big one is additional living expenses. So like in my case, my parents' home in North Carolina caught on fire in 2016. Thankfully, my aunt was a 41-year insurance agency owner, and she always made sure that our family had adequate insurance coverage in the event we had a catastrophic event like a fire. So lo and behold, my parents had a fire, and they were able to relocate to an apartment temporarily while the house was being rebuilt. Medical or meals were reimbursed. Anything that they had to spend while they were away from the home was reimbursed. They were given worksheets to kind of track everything and then submit receipts and all that kind of stuff. So a very smooth process given the terrible circumstances of dealing with the fire. So you'll definitely want to look at that part of your policy and make sure that you've got enough coverage for additional expenses in the event you have to vacate the home. So those are typically the types that are standard. And then of course, different additional coverages based on where the home is, what possessions you have, where you might want to add something to it.
Okay, so that's good to know. If you guys are just joining us now, we are having a conversation with Tanya over at Guided Insurance, and we are talking about questions to ask a home insurance agent when you are seeking, home insurance or insurance. And if you are looking in the state of Georgia, please connect with Tanya. I'll have her information. Something got in my throat. Sorry, I'll have her information at the end of the live. I'm sorry about that. Hey, Corey West, he said, good evening, Clark. How was your day? My day is pretty good until now. I don't know what just went down my throat. Hello, everybody. Not a homeowner. However, this information will be helpful when I buy. Yes, whenever I buy. Yes, he is seeking to buy. So it is very valuable information that hopefully you will listen to everything and ask any questions that may come to your mind that you feel like you just want to know a little bit more about homeowners insurance. David Matney said, Tanya, what would you say is the one additional rider or additional coverage would you recommend to someone who is moving to Georgia that they may not be aware of? That's a good question. Thanks, David. That's a good question.
Right. I would say that flood insurance
Mm,
is one that people should consider, because again we just don't know what's going to happen with these storms,
mhm.
and it's just better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So that would be one. And then again, I would just really think about those expensive possessions, again, as you think about maybe heirlooms, things like that, that have a lot of value, just making sure that they're covered in the
I,
event of damage.
I definitely agree with the flood insurance because I don't think people realize that Georgia, we're we are really a lot of Georgia is actually underwater. I don't want to say underwater, but it can be flooded per se, right? It's a state that actually is prone to floods, and I don't think people realize that. I realized that when I was helping a buyer buy a house down at the time she was purchasing. Hopefully she might join us. I don't know, in like the Macon area. But when we were trying to do just to make sure she wasn't in the flood area and then things like that. And we were looking up stuff. I didn't realize how much of Georgia is actually could be considered in a flood risk area. So it's very interesting.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, uh, James said, "Do you think insurance will be costing more because of the global warming? Because of global
Oh,
warming?"
oh, absolutely. It already is. Yeah, for sure. It's just another one of those consequences of what we've done to the environment. Now we know what kinds of things are impacting our environment, and it's time to just really put some things in place to try to counter it, although so much damage has already been done. But
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely, and it's because of this potential in or this not potential, this certain increased cost. It's just all the more important for homeowners in particular to be as proactive as you can with your property, and just try to mitigate your cost as much as you can. Control what you can control to the best of your ability.
And I'll get one more question, then we'll jump back into another question. It said, MH08 said, when talking about storms being more powerful, I think of Hurricane Camille. Hopefully I said it right. I don't know if I said it right, Camille or Camille. I think too many people are building in vulnerable areas as far as when it comes to the different storms happening.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, if you're building, especially a single family, just on a lot outside of a subdivision, definitely you want to pay attention to what's around where you're
Mhm.
building. I know we see it here in
We might be
Georgia
losing you.
quite a bit. It'll be an area that's full of. Okay, all right, back now.
Yeah, I
Okay,
got you back. Yeah.
nice green mature trees. Oh, okay, yeah, we'll see areas of nice green mature trees um, one day, and then they start building, and then next thing you know, those trees are gone, and something else is there, and all of that impacts the vulnerability of the area. Sometimes these city governments, they'll approve stream buffer variances, they'll approve
Hmm.
tree buffer variances. Those things matter when
Hmm.
it comes to over development. So you definitely want to check out the area, uh, kind of find out what's planned for the area before you do a big investment like build a house there.
Yeah. And so to get on his thing about hurricanes, I know you said as far as what's insurance can cover. So when it comes to hurricanes, I know it's a natural disaster, but does home insurance, would that be able to cover a hurricane if it was to tear down the house?
Right. So again, this is going to be a state specific thing,
Okay.
and a policy to policy thing, but typically the damage caused by that would be covered.
Okay.
But again, you'll want to check your policy and your state guidelines.
Okay. Okay. And so we'll go, let's see. Oh, hey Lang, she said good evening. Hey, how you doing? MHOA said I did look at the flood maps in my area. If both dams in the area burst, I'm high and dry. Okay, I'm glad you. We don't want you to be floating down the stream with the dams. So, David said, do insurance companies look at person's credit score when they determine the cost of a person's policy, or do they look more at the actual property itself?
Yeah, there's this thing called insurance score that does factor in kind of like your credit score as it relates to insurance. So it's going to look at claims history, missed payments, gaps in coverage, those kinds of things. So all of that does factor into the cost of your premium in your policy.
And so this is the discussion I had too. I know we're off of the topic as far as some of the questions I had wrote to you as well, but I had this discussion the other day with a couple colleagues in my office, and they were going back and forth with me. Okay, so when it comes to, if I was a person, right, and I went to put a claim on my house to get it through my home insurance, and I then decided to move out my house, I was telling my colleagues that the insurance not only it stays with the house, but it also follows the person. Is that wrong, or is it correct, or am I
wrong? I'm thinking that's going to be a state-specific thing too.
Okay.
Typically, the claims stay with the house.
Okay.
For sure, and then sometimes they do follow the person. So it's just going to depend on the state.
Okay, yeah, because I'm like, when my mom sold her house in Georgia, and she did a home insurance. I think we talked about this on the last slide. My mom sold her house in Georgia. The agent that she had at the time told her to get homeowners insurance to fix her roof. And if I would have known she was doing all this, I wouldn't have told her to do that. But that's what she did. She used the agent from the people across the street was selling their house. She ended up using their agent because they sold their house. Blase. And at the time I wasn't licensed in Georgia, so I couldn't have helped her in that aspect, but I could have advised her. But needless to say, she decided to do that. And then when she went to try to buy a house in Pennsylvania and she went to get insurance, they said that she had a claim about a roof and they couldn't, and that she had to wait a couple years until it kind of fell off or whatever. So she couldn't really buy a house, or she would have to look for a local insurance provider in that state that would be willing to take on said risk, I guess, to insure her to buy a house. So I'm like, you learn through experiences.
You do. Yeah. And just really at the end of the day, and we hear this in our office so much, people will call, perhaps they purchased the policy from, because I purchased this book last year, this book of business last year. So some of the older customers in the book, when they got their original policy, perhaps it wasn't explained to them and that kind of thing. So they'll call, they'll be contemplating filing a claim, and then, we'll tell them, look at your deductible, get some estimates on how much it'll cost you just to fix this out of pocket, because you really only want to file that claim when you really need to. So they'll get kind of bent out of shape and say, I pay all this money every month, and then the rare time, every 5 years or something, I want to file a claim, and then it's going to cost me an arm and a leg, and then you'll be ready to cancel me or raise my premium. Insurance is a scam, they'll say. But it's there when you need it, to cover those large expenses. But again, some of it goes back to proactivity. Just trying to mitigate the likelihood of damage to the best of your ability, and minimize those expenses when you can.
So I'm like, all right, so let's jump into another question that I had sent over to you. It says, is home insurance meant to cover wear and tear or routine maintenance? So this is a question that I kind of had with you initially, because a lot of people have been really, I don't want to say, they don't understand how to use their home insurance. They think that it's just like if something small happens in the house, they're like, oh, call my home insurance agent, file a claim. So how should home insurance be used? Is it used to cover the wear and tear or routine maintenance?
No, it's not. I had a customer call, go, her air conditioner or HVAC system stopped working. She continued to talk and continued to tell me about it, and ended up landing on it's old.
Okay.
So old, your homeowner's policy is not gonna cover that. Again, state specific, policy specific, struck by lightning, might be covered. Okay, but just age, or any way that you were negligent, that caused that HVAC to stop working, that's not going to be covered. Now, to get your wear and tear things covered, you probably would want to consider a home warranty. But there's still going to be some exclusions in that, some fine print in that. So you'll make sure that you know what you're buying when you buy that. For example, some of those warranties, they will cover a refrigerator with an automatic ice. They'll say they cover a refrigerator with an automatic ice maker, but then in the fine print might say we don't cover this part of the automatic ice maker. And lo and behold, that might be the part that goes out on yours.
Exactly.
So then it won't be covered. So again, just check that fine print to see, what you've purchased or what you're thinking about purchasing. But no, homeowners insurance is there to cover the structure, the things in it, and the liability that you have to protect your guests. But as far as the wear and tear, the age of your home, the age of things in your home breaking down, it's not for that.
It's not for that. So that's good for people to know. Corey West said, yes, all my family lives in Florida. I would never buy or build there. Visit, yes, but live, absolutely not. David said, thanks. I did not realize that. Great information in regards to the question he asked. MH08 said, I too have friends in Fort Myers area, always enjoy the visit, but resist their suggestions that I move down there. Just don't care for the culture. Okay. David said, Tanya, how often, I guess he meant to say, should someone update their policy if they have owned their home for a long time to ensure they have adequate coverage? I was going to ask this too, because I saw somewhere somebody said, like, if I bought a policy 10 years ago, should, as years go on and things change, inflation, everything happens, should I be updating my policy to the standard coverage of like the time that I live in currently?
Right. I mean, your insurance agent should be reaching out to you to review your policy annually. And we'll just call it a policy review. And that would be to review all the policies that you have, and just to find out what life changes, if any, you've had, what's going on with the property values in your area, what other development has come up, in your area. Have they built, a gas station, a liquor store around the corner, that might cause more strangers to be closer to your home than before. On the flip side, have they built something that's real favorable, to the community, and it would warrant you to make some changes to your coverage. So I would say at least annually, you want to review that with your agent. If they're not reaching out to you to schedule that, then you reach out to them and ask for it, at a minimum annually. Additionally, again, if you've had some sort of a change, have you put some upgrades in? Have you, just sort of changes, make sure that your insurance agent, because they won't know if you don't tell them. And then finally, even as an insurance agency owner, I'm an advocate for, just prior to your renewal notice, that's a great time to just review what you have, shop around, to just you're getting the best rate. Sometimes we'll just kind of stay with the company because we've just been with that company. We're loyal to them, but we don't really get a lot of benefit back. So it does not hurt, does not cost you anything to get a quote, a comparative quote for a different company, And again, it's a great time to catch any updates that need to be made to your policy.
Yeah, that's good. It's like you all just the same way people go in the stores and they, compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges. It doesn't hurt to always, reach out and compare.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. David has another question here. He said, Tanya, does simply calling, I think we kind of talked about this last time too, does simply calling your insurance company trigger a zero paid claim?
That one is tricky. I always advocate, when possible, call your local agent to try to get your answers through that method instead of calling that 1-800 number. I gave the example last time of, we had a leak in our home, and I just called for information. I was a little lazy to get out the policy and even see what our deductible was, and all of that. And then when it was time for renewal, we couldn't get renewed, so we had to go through the whole thing of having our autos at one company and then our home in a different one for a whole year, and missed out on that multi-policy discount because of that split. And it was just I wouldn't even call that phone call, I placed an inquiry. I mean, just a real basic question, and it's logged as enough to make us not renewable. So yeah, I would say, unless it's just something that can't wait until your local agent is available or your local agent's office is available, I would definitely contact your local agent. Most of them, have an email address. If it's something that happens after hours, and you can go ahead and get that email into them, and they can at least look at it the next business day and get back to you. That's what we do at my office.
Yeah. I tell most of the home buyers, I don't want to scare them from calling in a claim if need be, if the claim is actually something they need to, do. But I say, call your local aid, like the rep, the person that got you your policy. Give them a call directly, ask them the question before going to kind of hit that claim line, because you don't want to trigger something off of a basic question that you don't really need to be solved. You just want to ask, be inquisitive and ask questions. It's just call your local rep and just ask those questions, or join us on these lives when Tanya's here, and she can, of course, it is state specific, but she can answer generalized questions for you. Question, MH08 said, how do local homeless numbers affect insurance rates? So if there's a lot of homeless people in the area. That's interesting.
Wow.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, that's a real interesting question. I would have to do some sort of research on that one. I'm not sure. That's a really good question.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah. Do you know how it works in your state?
Yeah, I don't know. MH08, let us know how it works. I think he is in, I know he's in Colorado. So let us know how it works in Colorado. I wonder, because if you have a little bit more homeless, and this is just hypothetical, it's not facts to nobody, so please don't take this as fact. But I wonder, in regards to having homeless people on the streets, could that cause possibly more breaking into the house, entering the house, squatting in said house, and how would that maybe that could affect it? I don't know, but that is a very interesting question.
That's a very interesting question. Yeah, we'll have to look into that one.
Yeah. David said, Tanya, what does it mean if the insurance company comes out unannounced and takes photos of the home?
Oh, wow. Is this when you've filed a claim, or is it just prior to renewal? Like, when are you saying someone's had this happen to them? What were the circumstances?
Yeah, I know that happened to one of my friends. He had bought a house. He had just bought a house, and he decided to replace the roof. Within the first 30 days, he wanted to get a whole new roof placed on the house. The insurance people, they sent out an adjuster, and that adjuster took pictures of the roof, and he was with State Farm at the time. Hopefully they don't attack me. But he was with State Farm at the time, and they withdrew his insurance of his insurance plan, his homeowner's insurance, because they were saying that the roof was getting repaired or it was damaged or whatever. But he was replacing said roof because the roof was the house was older, And I guess he was replacing said roof, so then that way he can show certificate of completion to send into the insurance provider to hopefully get a lower cost on his insurance. And they came out and they came out and they dropped him after doing the adjustment and seeing that he was replacing the roof.
Wow. Yeah, that's another one that without knowing, just kind of all the details, and I know what was going on within State Farm to prompt that. Was the person asked about the roof when they did the initial quote for insurance? Was the homeowner truthful at that time? Just a lot of questions there that make that one very difficult to answer.
It's very interesting. Of course, you learn, like I say, as you go through life and as different experiences happen, or you whether helping people or knowing people, or if it's yourself, you're like, wow, you learn so much information, like small little nuances. And that's the purpose too of having these lives, right? And everybody that's coming in, joining in chat and conversation, because something might be happening to you that we don't know, and vice versa, and questions and information. So it's great to be able to transfer that over amongst each other.
So, David, I guess just to kind of round out the rest of your question, it's obviously they're looking for something. Now, where they got that tip, it's we just don't know, but they're obviously looking for something. Either they've gotten some information that you've made some change. What was said at the time that the policy was bound might not have been fully true, and they're just going out to see what's going on. So we'd have to have some more information on that one.
MHOA said I just split my home and auto and saved money. So he split. Okay. So I know some companies nowadays make you bundle it. So I guess with him splitting it, he was able to find to save some money, so to speak.
Yeah, and that does happen. That definitely does happen. When you go to the different company, if you had the homeowners with one company for a while and the auto used to be there, and then if you go split the auto off someplace else, maybe there's some additional discounts that other carrier offers that you no longer qualify for at your current company. Maybe their rates are just lower, just because. For the auto. So yeah, again, definitely pays to shop around, prior to those renewals. Don't just let them roll, because you could find something better out there.
Awesome. He said in regards to the question he asked about the homeless people, he said, no, I don't know how it works in Colorado, but I have had property damage because of them. Yes, I had a squatter as well. So, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, in that case, if you've had property damage to the point where you filed a claim because of it, then, that's going to impact premiums and renewability. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Let's see. David said, no, it might have been a few months before renewal. So I think he was talking about his insurance. Hopefully my insurance company is not monitoring the chat. I might be canceled with all my questions. Oh no. No, I'm like, hopefully they're not monitoring the chat, but we appreciate the questions, you guys.
All right.
I sent Tanya over a bunch of questions beforehand, but of course like I said, we want to open this up to you guys having questions. And of course we know they are state specific, but a general question could possibly be, get answered. You never know. And then you can always take those questions back to your insurance provider if you feel like you need more information. Let's see what Lauren. Hey, Lauren. So Lauren is a local realtor in the Metro Atlanta area. So I appreciate you jumping on, Lauren. She said, wow, State Farm has a reputation of dropping its clients when it comes to home insurance. Also, hey, everyone. Yes, State Farm dropped me actually a long time. It wasn't even with home insurance. I had business insurance and they dropped me. I'm not a fan of State Farm, so sorry. Don't cancel my live, but I'm just not a fan of State Farm. Because they'll drop you for no reason and they don't explain why. So, well, in my case, I should say. Lauren said, Tanya, what insurance company do you work for, or which ones do you recommend specifically for home insurance?
Right. So yeah, I am an Allstate agent. And of course I recommend us. Um, but it's all the companies, we're basically doing the same thing. I think for my agency, what we're doing to set ourselves apart from some of the others is that we're really taking the time to explain the policies to our customers. It's a twofold purpose for that. First of all, it cuts down on the amount of service calls that come into our agency, and then we can focus on growing the business rather than having to read people's policies to them once a week or twice a month or however long however frequent it ends up being. So just really making sure that people understand what they've purchased. If they end up figuring out that they didn't purchase what they thought they purchased, then we go through some options of what they can do to get closer to what they wanted to begin with. We are also, we get notification when our customers do file claims. We know that the claims process is notoriously frustrating for customers, especially if you end up getting your claim denied. So what we do at my agency is when we see that a claim's been filed, we let the customer know, hey, we know you filed a claim. If you are trying to work with your adjuster or the claims department and you feel like you're being ghosted or you're not getting the answers that you want, let us know. Even though we don't handle claims in the office and we don't have any impact on the outcome of your claim, we can work to try to at least get you responses and get you acknowledged. So that's just a couple of things that we're doing differently at my agency to try to set us apart and offer above customer service. So that's what I would say. Now, typically, we do get calls into the agency, particularly when we're prospecting new customers.
Okay.
And they'll say, well, I had a terrible experience with Allstate, years ago. Now I swore I'm never doing business with Allstate again, but I'll typically call those people and, just explain exactly what I just did just now and, ask them to give Guided Insurance a chance to see if we can kind of change your perspective on that. So sometimes they take it and become our customer. And then they write a great Google review. And then sometimes they're just like, sorry, if you ever go independent or you ever switch to whatever company, let me know. But I just can't do Allstate. So it's a real thing, that some of the larger carriers have done some things to some customers that have really soured, put a sour taste in their mouth, and there's no getting around it. So
yeah, and just like everything in life, you shop around, and as people we're not always going to have the best experience all the time. So no one's ever going to have a great review, which is crazy. Hey Rhonda, how you doing? Thanks for joining us tonight. I had the pleasure of actually meeting Rhonda in person, a wonderful, wonderful woman. So hopefully you are doing all right and you're able to, and you are getting everything situated in regards to what we talked about. Lang said, what does it mean to split the insurances?
Oh, okay. So as I mentioned before, most of the major carriers will have what we call the bundle. So that means you have your auto insurance or your homeowner's insurance all at one company. And then there's typically a discount associated with that. At Allstate, we call it a multi-policy discount. So a lot of the carriers are going to the point where you pretty much have to bundle. For example, I've networked and partnered with folks like Devon who are realtors or mortgage loan officers. They'll send me prospective customers who are searching for homeowners insurance. That prospect like our homeowners insurance quote, but then when I tell them we have to bundle your auto, they're like, forget it. I don't want to bundle my auto, and it'll be various reasons why they don't want to do that. maybe their auto is under a commercial policy right now because they use it for a business, or maybe their car is not even in their name, just various reasons that they don't want to do that. Or possibly they have some budget issues, cash flow issues, and they're just like, you know what, sometimes I don't always pay my auto insurance, so I don't want my house tied up in this, So just lots of reasons why they might not want to bundle. So when we say split, that just means have, your auto at State Farm and your homeowners at Allstate, and you're dealing with two different insurance companies.
I'm like, and so like MH08 said, it saved him, some money. So it could possibly save you money. But again, I know most of the insurance companies nowadays, when I talk to home buyers or even homeowners, they are kind of bundling everything together. But you gotta, of course, at the end of the day, everything comes down to numbers. Even I tell people when buying a house, you need to know your numbers and see if it fits into your monthly budget. As an individual, we all have our own constraints on what we can afford to pay and what we're willing to pay. So you just got to make sure it fits in your budget. Tanya, I love David. I'm like, I have a bunch of questions too, but David, keep them coming. I'm like,
right.
All right. But everybody, keep your questions coming. We are Tanya and myself, we appreciate it. Tanya, what is one thing you wish new home buyers knew about insurance when they first buy a home?
Yeah, that's a good thing. I take advantage of any opportunity I get to go to new home buyer meetings that realtors offer here in Georgia. And, typically they'll have a buyer's agent there. They'll have a mortgage loan officer. They'll have me. Sometimes they'll have a home inspector, and just really give those new home buyers a lot of great information. And usually a lender is there a lot of good information all at one time. And typically those home buyers will be at different stages in the process. Some, already have a contract on the house. Some haven't even gotten pre-qualified yet, so just a whole range of where they are in the process. So as far as one thing I really think new home buyers find when I do go to those meetings is I just do the comparison between their renter's policy that they have now and let them know what they're getting into with the homeowner's insurance policy. And just I do a contrast and a comparison between those two things. So I'll point out that, when you're a renter, you are getting insurance on your stuff. And that's it. You're not responsible for the building, the apartment, in any of that. Your landlord's responsible for the structure part. But when you purchase this home, this homeowner's insurance that your mortgage company is going to require you to have, that's covering everything, your stuff, the structure, what you add on, all of that. So I like to point that out, and then I get to the difference in cost, because if you've only been a renter and only paid renter's insurance, and then you see how much more expensive your homeowner's insurance is, it's kind of shocking. So I just like to let them know that up front while they're, the lender will typically tell them, if you qualify for, $400,000, don't go purchase a $399,000 house, because you're going to have these other expenses that you've got to cover. So you want to make sure you have some buffer there. So I like to do that up front, just so they know, the larger the home, the more expensive the home, the more expensive that homeowner's insurance is going to be. So really just think about this cost before you go too far down this home buying road, and make sure you're prepared to cover it.
That's good to know. Do you see a difference in cost with homeowners insurance if you're purchasing a new construction compared to resale? Is it a little cheaper if someone was to purchase a new construction?
It's going to depend on the value of the house,
Okay.
and what other things are at the house. Does that resale have a pool, and the new construction doesn't? What are the construction materials? Where's it located? Lots of factors go into that. So you can't really compare new construction versus resale, how that homeowners is going to shake out.
Okay. That makes sense. Let's see. He's so silly. Let's see. David said, what should someone first starting out in life know about renter's insurance? Yes, they do. Renters, that's a good one to know too.
Yeah.
Renters insurance.
Yeah. Here in Georgia, I've noticed that a lot of the newer apartment complexes are now requiring renters insurance. It typically had been optional, but it's now becoming more of a requirement with these newer ones. And then they're taking it a step further, and they're telling the tenants what company to get it from too.
Yeah,
because I actually went to some of them trying to get prospective customers, and it's just like, everybody gets it through blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So yeah, someone first starting out in life, I definitely would advocate they get renter's insurance because, if that apartment complex catches on fire, if you live, on the second floor of a third story apartment complex and your neighbor upstairs has some sort of a flooding issue, pipe busted, something like that, you want this renter's insurance to cover your items. So I would, and renter's insurance is so inexpensive. It is so inexpensive. So it's going to cover you from things like theft, fire, floods. So it's worth how the little that it costs to have that peace of mind. Sometimes people who rent, they'll say that much, or my stuff's not worth that much. It's worth more than you think. If you think about having to go replace everything that you have and pay out of pocket for it, that should let you know that it would have made more sense just to get a renter's insurance policy so that you don't have to go spend whatever that little bit is you think your stuff is worth all at one time.
So if you guys are just joining us now, we are getting close to an hour. However, we have Tanya here from Guided Insurance, and she is an insurance agent. I want to say home insurance because she covers different things in insurance, but she's an insurance agent. We're talking about homeowners insurance, and we're going to dive a little bit into commercial insurance. Lane said, I have renters insurance through Allstate Insurance. Okay.
Yay. Thank you, Norma.
MHOA say, woman had State Farm hit me. Gotta say, adjuster came out, checked within a month. Okay, so he said the woman who had State Farm, the adjuster came out within a month. That's good. Rhonda said, my agent told me State Farms will drop you if you have more than one homeowner claim in 3 years. That is tough in coastal Georgia with hurricanes and tornadoes. Seems like every year. Yeah, State Farm is I don't want this to become a bashing session with State Farm, but I'm like, oh Lord, I've had my experiences with State Farm. I had to leave them.
As I said, we hear those people tell us that about Allstate when they call us, and they'll say it about State Farm too. It's and sometimes those bad experiences, those sour tastes in people's mouth, it sometimes goes back to just not being sure what is covered, and then finding out the hard way after a loss that it's right there in black and white. That's not covered. They're applying the policy as written. Might not be what you wanted to hear, as you're sitting there and whatever damage that wasn't covered is happening to you, and then you're mad at the whole company. But yeah.
That's why I tell everybody to read everything. And I know it can be very scary, or I don't want to say scary, but I guess intimidating when you're sitting in front of somebody and they're giving you like all this paperwork, and then it's almost like you feel like you're forced to sign it without reading it. But I say read it. Like even when I get into a agreement with customers or clients or family or friends or whatever, and I lay out like an agreement, I know the people I work with, like the sellers and the buyers I work with, when we actually sit down, I'll read the whole agreement to them, and they be like, oh my God, Deron, like you are reading this whole thing to me. But I like to do that just so you can understand it, and if you have questions, you can ask me, and of course you can always come back and ask questions too. But it's just like you should just read it just so you know what you're signing. Corey West said, would it be better to invest premiums into an index fund rather than getting a policy, being that insurance companies have ways of not honoring policies hate the idea of paying for years with no claim.
That's an interesting approach. And we do offer financial services at Guided Insurance, by the way. But if you've got a mortgage on the home, most likely you're not going to be able to get around having a homeowner's insurance policy. It's usually required with most mortgages in the state of Georgia. I'm not sure about other states. So keep that in mind. Now you can, definitely take your policy as low as you possibly can go as far as the coverages, if that's what you want to do. If you have that much confidence in the fund that you're investing in, and your ability to access that money as quickly as you might need to in the event that you have a claim. So you just want to factor all that in before going that route. But yeah, I mean, as we're hearing things change in the news as far as investments and financial things, some of these traditional instruments that we've been using might not be the best thing anymore. So yeah, that's a nice outside of the kind of way of thinking about things. But again, just know that if you've got a mortgage, most likely you're going to have some sort of a home insurance policy from an insurance company.
Rhonda said, this might kind of lead us into some of the commercial stuff too. How does a landlord make sure the renter's insurance is paid the whole lease, that the renter's insurance is paid the whole lease? I don't know if I'm reading it right.
Oh yeah. So the landlord can ask the renter for proof of renter's insurance, and they can ask to be notified if that lapses. So that's typically how they'll find out. They would get notification that it's lapsed, just like the renter, and know that they haven't paid it.
So that will lead into some of this commercial questions in the last couple minutes. And MHOA said adjuster came out within a week with State Farm, and Rhonda said that she's with State Farm. She doesn't plan on changing. To me, all insurance companies are basically the same. So it's still some positivity with State Farm. So that's good. So when it comes to commercial insurance, and then we'll dive into MHOA, put another question in there. What type of commercial insurance is required for like assets like multifamily, retail, industrial? Is there a particular like commercial insurance required for those type of businesses?
Right. So it might seem like it's different, but overall it's the same kind of basic requirements. So you'll want some coverage that protects the property, the actual building. You'll want some general liability, which again protects third party people from coming after that business. Making sure that you're prepared to cover those claims. Workers' comp in the state of Georgia, if you've got 3 or more employees, you'll need to have workers' comp coverage. If you've got a commercial auto that's involved with it, do you have a van that you use for the business? You'll need to get a commercial auto policy for that. And then business interruption. That's a big one. It's a confusing one for some people. But it's coverage if something physical happens to the building where your business is taking place, and it's so impactful that you can't operate your business. So that this portion of the policy will kick in to cover those expenses. However, it does not cover things like COVID. It does not cover the business owner becoming so ill that they can't operate the business. And that's one of those things that ends up being a source of frustration for business owners, because it sounds like it should cover those things, but it doesn't. So those are typically the main ones that would be covered for any of these assets. Okay. That multifamily one might include some equipment breakdown coverage. But for the most part, those ones that I listed are the ones that would be there.
Okay. And then I guess we'll swing this one back in for the renter stuff. Question: why would a landlord care if a renter had renter's insurance?
Yeah, it's that's a really good question. Especially when we think about what the renter's insurance covers. I know I was a landlord over a property that I used to live in, and then I rented it out for 12 years. I required renter's insurance. To me, it was kind of a symbol of this person intends to take care of my property while they're living there, because this person cares enough about their own stuff, to put some insurance on it. And then the other reason that they might care or require it is in the event that, something happens that the landlord's responsible for, they know they don't have the headache of having to deal with that tenant's property, their tenant's possessions. They know there's a policy in place to cover for that, and the landlord can just focus on what he or she is responsible for. So those are the top two reasons that I think a landlord would care.
That makes sense, because if you care enough to, like you said, insure your own stuff, then you would care enough to take care of my stuff. Tanya, great point. I think that is a great service you provide, to sit down and go over the policy with new policyholders. Yeah, that is a great service. We appreciate you for doing that.
Yeah, thanks.
Because again, everybody doesn't service people the same way, right? So when you have somebody that's willing to take the time out to educate people, go over stuff with people, it's a lot of I guess send kudos to you, because I appreciate it to read through stuff with people.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. It says, so another question is, what are the minimum insurance requirements from my lender or investors? That's what I kind of wrote down for commercial insurance.
Okay. So yeah, in Georgia, it's a minimum of 100,000 on that general liability. However, or your investor could require more than that. Again, it just depends on the type of business that you're operating. Are you leasing this property from this from whoever you're occupying it from? And they'll just kind of factor that in. They'll usually let you've got to have a minimum of 500,000 or whatever they want it to be, based on what they come up with. I know I wrote a commercial policy for a dental office here in Georgia, and when I initially did the policy, I set it at a reasonable amount. It was more than the minimum.
Okay.
But then the prospect sent me a message from, she leases the building. She sent me a message from the landlord saying, nope, got to have a minimum of X, so then I had to go back into the policy and update that for her. So yeah, the lender or landlord can tell you what the limits have to be, but what the minimums have to be. But in Georgia, the minimum amount is 100,000.
Okay. Yeah, because I think they even put a minimum on, even if you're a renter down here, like they'll say you need at least this minimum coverage when you get renter's insurance as well. From what I've seen when I talk to some people that are renting. I guess the last question we'll ask, unless anybody has any questions about commercial insurance. So I wanted to bring commercial insurance in because if you are an investor that happens to watch the lives, or if you're somebody that wants to get into investments in the future, or if you're a contractor, some type of person in that particular path per se, you might want to know a little bit about the commercial side of insurance. And so Tanya does that as well. So I wanted you guys to we dip into that. So I guess the last question is, before we let you go, because I don't want to keep you too long. But I know before we jumped on, we were kind of talking about you as an insurance agent being able to provide a contractor with some type of builder's insurance. So can you talk a little bit about that, as far as like builder's insurance that could be provided through you?
Sure. So it's called typically called builder's risk. It could go by some other names too, but we typically call it builder's risk. And it's designed for people who are doing like full rebuilds. Maybe they purchased a really old home, investment property. They're basically going to demolish it and almost start all the way over. While that home is under construction, they can get what's called a builder's risk policy, and it covers, you know, the home and everything while it's in that interim state. Typically, whoever's doing the remodel, the rebuild, they'll estimate how long they think it's going to take them to finish it. And then depending on the company that writes builder's risk, they'll set the policy, this builder's risk policy, to match that estimated completion time, or sometimes they might have a minimum of 6 months. But it's just good coverage to have while a home is under construction, waiting to be finished and then ultimately sold to somebody or occupied by a tenant.
Okay. So that's good information to know if you guys are in the process of, as an investor, you want to build. Does that builder's insurance, could it also go for somebody? I know in the state of Georgia, they have it where some people, well, I know in Fulton County per se, where you can kind of go about building your own house if you're going to occupy it as a homeowner occupier. But I don't know if that will fall into that commercial or just regular general home insurance, like residential side.
Right. Typically, these would be ones where a general contractor is going to be involved. So not
Okay.
when the person that's going to occupy it is also doing the work.
Okay.
Because there is an inspection that'll take place.
Okay.
You know, the application asks a lot of questions about, you know, what's the masonry, you know, square footage, how many floors, just a lot of questions about the property. You know, is it fenced? You know, security system, cameras, sprinklers, just a lot of questions that the underwriter asks about what's going on. But yeah, typically they prefer that a general contractor be involved in these policies.
Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate your time. I'm going to put, if you guys want to get in contact with Tanya, she is over at Guided Insurance. Her email address is tanya@guidedinsuranceenagency.com. A great, not only a great agent, but also a great resource for education. Like she says, she goes to a lot of events, a lot of different seminars to actually educate different home buyers, homeowners, different consumers. So you're going to get somebody that you know believes in what she does and also wants to make sure you understand and you're getting educated. So I don't know, is there anything else that you wanted to kind of say, Tanya, before we get off the live?
Yeah, just thanks for having me back. Enjoyed the discussion and sharing the information. Thanks everybody for the questions. You know, again, if you're in the state of Georgia and you're not already with Allstate, reach out. We'd love to give you a no obligation, apples to apples quote on the coverage you have now, and hopefully have you become a Guided Insurance customer.
Yeah, so I'm like, thank you, David. Thanks again. He said, great show, Tanya. I appreciate all the information. Yes.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Tanya. Thank you. MHOA said, thank you for your time, Tanya.
You're welcome.
Lang said, thank you so much for all your knowledge. Have a great week. Great show. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Yes. We want to thank everybody for joining in. Like Tanya said, if you're in the state of Georgia, please don't be scared to reach out. You know, you never know, to get a quote, to get some information around different real estate options. I mean, real estate options, insurance options. My head is real estate. I'm like, I gotta go to bed. Like, not go to bed, but just leave my mind from that. I talk real estate all day long with everybody, from my dad to everybody that calls my phone. And yes, please, guys, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Please, that helps to kind of push our video through the algorithm. Thank you, David. And again, thank you, Tanya, for joining us here tonight.
Welcome. Thank you.
And we appreciate your time. And so everybody else, thank you as well for joining us tonight. He said, MHO said, does she have a web page?
Yes, I do. It's guidedinsuranceenagency.com.
Guided Insurance. I'm gonna type in the chat. Agency.com, so that way people can get it. It should come up.
And then on social media, Facebook, it's just simply Guided Insurance, and Instagram, it's guided_insurance. So love me.
Yes, I'm gonna type it in the chat for you guys so you can get it, and then and then you guys can get it. And what I'll do too. So there we go. So I'll put it on the screen too. So if you're looking for Tanya online, it's www.guidedinsurance.com. So if anybody's watching this back, they can be able to head over to your website page, and then also on Facebook and is Guided Insurance, and then on IG is Guided_Insurance. Is that correct?
Facebook, there's a space between Guided and Insurance. I don't know if that matters or not, but
oh yeah, it does.
It does. Okay.
All right. Yeah. So you guys make sure I'll just put it in there. So Guided, and then there's a space in between insurance.
Yeah.
So you guys, if you are watching this back, please head over, follow Tanya as well. Even if you're not in the state of Georgia, a following can always help. And then also, you could always go online and give her a review because you joined us live here. She educated you. So even if you put in a review, I don't know how it'll help. I don't know if this is okay for you, but you guys can say, hey, Tanya, educated me through with my insurance questions. So I don't know if that helps or not.
Yeah, everyone helps. That's great. Yeah. Thanks. Great idea.
Yeah, no problem. So, all right. So everybody have a wonderful Sunday night, and we'll be talking to you soon. All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.